I have not seen evidence that addiction is a disease. People will cite this study where there's a particular area of the brain that lights up more when alcoholics see alcohol or, porn addicts see porn. And but I think that's just a function of learning. Taxi drivers light up that portion of the brain when they see taxis. Should we say that they're powerless over taxis, that they have a taxi driving addiction? I think it's just reflective of human learning. So I don't believe in unless and until someone really shows me the science that it's a disease, I don't really believe in this idea of disease or powerlessness. And I've got some thought experiments I can take people through that kind of prove to them that they are not powerless to do anything about what they're doing in it. That's the first thing that I have to beat with people, is to convince them that this is a winnable battle. Um, okay. In terms of identity, I think of it in a unique way. Um, it's not really an abstract concept like the early psychoanalysts might have talked about. I think of it as proceeding from what you habitually do at the moment of temptation. Character is what you habitually do at the moment of temptation, right? You can give in, you could follow your rule, you could have courage, um, and values are reflected by the rules that you choose. If I say that I only have chocolate on the weekends and I have 3 nutritious meals every calendar day, and I wake up each day to drink, two 8-ounce glasses of green smoothies, then I obviously value my health and fitness, right? My identity is the sum total of my values. So it all kind of ladders up from the values that I choose and the rules that I follow. And if I see myself having the green smoothies and having 3 nutritious meals a day and following the other rules that I set for myself, when I see myself doing that day in and day out, you get to the point where you don't even really need the rule. And people know this intuitively. So when I ask people, hey, do you think you could never have chocolate again? They go, no way, no way, I couldn't do that. If I say, do you think you could become a person who doesn't eat chocolate? They go, yeah, I might be able to do that. Like we kind of know that we have those shortcuts in our head, and that's what I call identity. Identity change is difficult because the brain thinks that you might be giving up something that kept you alive. So your brain thinks that it's keeping you alive by indulging in porn. Your brain thinks it's keeping you alive by binge eating. Um, I actually tell people binge eating is not a disease; it's an indication of a healthier than normal brain. It was the people with the strongest cravings who survived 100,000 years ago because they were most motivated to go and find food. Unfortunately, we just live in a really sick environment. Um, Pornography didn't exist 100,000 years ago. Like, you were lucky if you got a peek of a woman at the or a man at the river. Um, and so I think it's important to recognize that we have strong brains. The very same mechanism that creates those addictive patterns, very same mechanism that builds cravings, also can label them as dormant. So it can also extinguish a craving. So it's impossible for you to be broken unless you have some type of brain damage, or you have a lesion to your ventral medial hypothalamus or something like that. It's very, very unlikely that if you were able to form a strong craving, that you can't break that craving, because it's the same exact mechanism that's operating. Um, and so, this is kind of the advanced part of my program, and not a lot of people get to it. But once they understand the machinery of building rules and following them and sticking to them, I start to ask them, well, what values do you want to reflect in your rules? And what does that say about the identity you're trying to develop? And they kind of keep their eye on that, and they revise that over time. And eventually they don't even really need the rules. Eventually they just become that. They've just built that character. So that's how I think about that.
Do you use or do you believe in the use of visualization? Meaning, you ask that person the question, can you see yourself being a person that no longer eats chocolate? And if they say yes, like you're helping them, from what I think, like envision themselves down the road becoming a different person. Like, is there a strategy in your approach to using that? And if so, like, how do you walk somebody through, maybe in a session or through a process of visualization?
Yeah. Um, we have a process we call the big why, which doesn't sound incredibly creative or unique, but it captures what we're doing. And this builds motivation. It builds a motivational fantasy that's specific to the rules that you're trying to follow. I mean, it differs from general weight loss motivation in that it's tied to the specific rules that you've chosen, so it becomes a unique fantasy. And I do ask people to visualize. The way I'll phrase it is, hey, I know that your food monster says this is not possible, but what if you could comply with this rule for an entire year? What would be different in your life? I want you to take me through a day, not just, well, you would have lost some weight, but what would be different about how you felt when you got up? Would your joints ache less? You have fewer health risks? Would you have more energy? Would you have a better relationship with your wife, with your kids, would you be doing more work? Would you be more successful? Let's look at every different area of your life and build a very detailed fantasy about what's waiting for you. This turns out to be incredibly effective for two reasons. First of all, we seem to have a kind of goal-seeking mechanism inside of us, and if you know what you're aiming at, if you know where you're going, you're much more likely to get there than if you're just saying, "Well, I'm going to eat good." You know, you're much more. I think Yogi Berra says, if you don't know what you're aiming for, you're probably going to hit something else. Um, and the second reason is that our food monsters don't want us to see what we're giving up. Like, can you be free of worries about diabetes or cancer? Can you be able to, go out hiking with your grandkids? Can you be a better role model for your adolescent daughter? Um, and when people don't take the time to very specifically detail what the future has in store for them, if they just comply with this, and they don't know what they're giving up, and it's like, oh, well, am I gonna eat this cookie and be a worse role model for my kid? I don't think I want to do that. So that helps. The other thing that helps is, we call it the big why not. Is thinking about what's going to happen usually in 5 or 10 years if you keep indulging. And most people think that they're treading water, and that if they could start again tomorrow or next week or next year, and they're going to be in the same spot. But when they stop and think about it, they're not really treading water, they're drowning. And asking people, what does the ghost of Christmas future have to show you? Although it's very unpleasant, it often scares them straight. So the combination of those two visualizations can be really powerful.
It's exactly the approach that we teach. We want to envision and desire a future greater than the one that we currently have. So we're running towards that one thing, right? Napoleon Hill states, the starting point of all success is desire, right? So how crystal clear can we get on this ultimate future outcome that pulls us towards there? But then there's also that kind of future hell that we run from. So they tap into the fear-based motivation. I'm running from this one and I'm running towards this. And some people will be heavier pulled with the future. Others will maybe be more resistant from the fear mechanism, but we're both driven through both of those mechanisms. So
Carrots and sticks. Carrots and sticks. Yeah. And have a very brave look at both.